All the rolling go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today we are in Albuquerque, New Mexico, like right downtown Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we are at the Telephone Museum of New Mexico. And I am excited about this museum because I've always had telephones. And I've even got one of the old wind-up ones that was converted to a radio and some other things. But we are here with Tom, and Tom is going to take us through this museum. And I'm sure that his wife Sue may end up giving us. You're not going to talk at all?
We're not married.
Oh, I thought you said Tom Turner and Sue Turner. Tom Baker and Sue Turner. Yeah. See, that's how much I guess I paid attention when I came in. Okay, well, Sue will probably have a few things to say also. We've been talking a little bit here, and there's a lot of information. Anyway, we are going to go through this museum, take a look at what they've got, and get a little bit of telephone history. Welcome to Where Am I to Go, Tom and Sue.
All right. To start off with, this building was built in 1906. It was still a territory at the time.
Really?
Didn't become a state until 1912. So this is an old building. It's a wooden construction building. You'll see the tall beams here and the wooden floors.
Right.
Everything has been tested. We are safe, though. You don't have to worry about falling through the floor or anything.
Well, I wasn't even worried about that anyway. Come in here, it looks just like a modern building, other than, like you said, it kind of strikes you because you've got your big heavy wooden beams and that type of stuff that's still visible. But
AT&T actually owns the building.
Still?
And yes.
Okay.
They brought it to code and so forth.
So do they own the museum?
We lease it.
No, we lease
the
it.
building.
Yes.
Okay.
The building is ours, really. So.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about telephone history.
Well, we might start with the mural on the wall. That depicts the worst snowstorm in the United States. Between New York and Boston, the phone lines were down. Angus MacDonald and his crew was sent out to clear the trouble, and they walked in on snowshoes. The snow was 4 foot on the level with 50-foot drifts.
50-foot drifts?
Yes. If you notice, between the second and the third pole, that's a train stuck in the snow.
Okay.
The train had been there 2 days. They had no food, no water. Angus and his crew walked back out, got enough food, water, and blankets for another 3 days. Once they got the supplies back, then they went on and cleared their trouble. This actually became known as the Spirit of Service. And that was the logo for the motto, for the phone company. And you'll see pictures around that depicts the spirit of service.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Alexander Graham Bell, is he the one that did the first telephone?
No, there was other people involved with it, but Alexander was the one that actually got the
patent?
Patent, yes. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when was this? When did the telephones first start? I know that we had telegraph way back, telegraph with the Morse code and everything, but when did the actual voice over the lines kind of come together?
The patent was 1876.
That early?
Yes. Phones here in Albuquerque didn't appear until, I'm not sure about
1881.
81.
1881, they appeared in Las Vegas, New Mexico, which was the largest town in New Mexico at that time because that's where the railroad came through to pick up the cattle to go to the packing houses in Kansas.
Okay.
So in 1881, we had telephone exchanges. And the first exchange was Las Vegas, New Mexico.
And Las Vegas, New Mexico is not a very big town now, is it?
Oh, yeah, it
Is it?
is. It has a university and, oh, yeah.
Okay, I know I've been through Las Vegas a couple times, but I just didn't, maybe I've just kind of stayed on the interstate and skirted it
It's
instead
not
of
one of your
actually.
huge ones, but it's not, it's very small.
Okay.
Okay, so, and it's probably about, an hour and 30 minutes from Albuquerque to Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Okay. And
It has a World College there and that kind of thing, you know, so it's
okay,
of note.
okay, yeah,
Okay.
I just learning some more.
You bet, you bet.
So anyway, the first telephones were set up in Las Vegas. Now, was that just in the community, or did those outreach to different communities? Like, did they have phone service between Las Vegas and Albuquerque?
No, they did not. It was actually the Otero brothers that set it up, and they only stayed in business about a year or two, and it was between a doctor and the pharmacy. So that was when the telephone's mission became clear to people, was that it was going to be for emergencies. It's going to be for people who needed help.
Okay. And so they just had two telephones, one at the pharmacy and one at the doctor's office.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, let's say that. We don't speak with any authority. We weren't there, you know.
Right. Okay. And so did they have to have a switchboard or any of
No.
that stuff at that point in time? They
No.
just picked up the phone and the other person picked up the phone, kind of like
Exactly.
the cans on the string thing.
Exactly like that, so.
Yes.
Okay. And then when did the telephone start migrating out into the other communities to where you had phone service between, let's say, Las Vegas and Albuquerque?
Well, it perpetuated, I don't know the dates exactly, but it got to Albuquerque in probably the early 1890s, and in 1906 was when we had to build this building, and it took a couple of years to do that. And all of the operators that connected local and long distance, you see, they had one company that did local and one company that did long distance for a number of years. And so this was a building where they shared that efforts to do local and long distance, and this became the switching building.
Okay.
And today, it's still the switching building.
Okay. And they did the split for a long time, because I remember we used to pay a phone bill, but then you always got a long distance charge that came out every month.
Sure.
And your mom would really get upset if you called somebody that was a little bit too far away.
Let me show you a picture of, we have 100 years wall, 100 years of telephones wall. And one of the pictures there depicts the first time that one company did both functions,
Okay.
local and long distance. And so you can kind of tell from that, you know, we didn't always used to have that.
Wow, this is really an amazing wall with all these pictures. You've got telephone poles that are probably, they've got to be like 80 foot tall with a whole bunch of the cross pieces on it?
This has like 27 or 28 cross arms on it. And you know, in the 20s, that's when the guys used to do pole sitting. And they would climb up there and sit on top of that pole and earn a few pennies that way, I suppose.
How come it
and I thought, you know what, we sent men up to do that kind of dangerous stuff because they didn't know it was dangerous.
Okay.
That's why we send men to war. They have no idea that they could be killed. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I shouldn't
No,
do that.
we'll go with that. There is a reason why women live longer than men.
Yeah. In fact, we had a healthy discussion when we were putting the museum together as to who built the system, the women or the men.
Okay.
So we got this picture, And they said, now wait, you ought to have this one blown up real big because it's the men. They went out and put that cable up and the poles up and all of that. And I said, do you see one single man in that picture? Those are all women, and they're checking every reel of cable, and those reels are about 5 feet tall and probably 4 or 5 feet wide, and each cable is probably at least 6 to 8 inches wide, and they are having to check every single wire in that cable to make sure it has continuity.
Wow.
And I said, so see, you don't see any men doing that, do you?
No,
And they
actually,
said,
the
no,
picture,
they went to coffee.
I was going to say the picture underneath shows a couple of service trucks with ladders and everything, but there's 10 or 15 men standing in front of the truck just taking a picture. It doesn't look like they're working at all. But the picture above it with the women with the coils of wire, every single one of them have their hands on a coil of wire, and it looks like they're working. Now, you put those two pictures together just on purpose,
We
right?
did that on purpose, absolutely.
Just to prove your point.
Oh, yeah. And we always loved this gal's expression. She was like one of the first operators that was in
Los Lunas.
Belen, Los Lunas.
Uh-huh.
Okay, which is a little bit south of here, you know. And we thought, boy, you don't mess with her.
No, she's got kind of a grouchy look on her face.
Yeah.
Somebody must have been gossiping about her while she was listening.
You know, we had a grand opening in 1997 here, where we had a gal that used to do Lily Tomlin's.
Oh,
What was the name of the operator
one
there?
ringy dingy, two ringy dingy.
Yeah, Laugh-In. And what was the name of the operator? Anyway, she did that for our grand opening in 1997. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was so funny. But yeah.
Okay, and we come into this gallery, and you have tons of pictures. You've got old phones inside of the cases from, well, all I can say is really old phones. It looks like from about 1920 all the way on up to what I remember with the round dials in the late 60s and 70s.
That's just one or two cases there. This wall up here has from the very first telephone that was invented by Alexander Graham Bell and his buddy Watson, and it goes clear up to the first telecommunications satellite.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of the old oak telephones that have the little bells on top and and the hand crank on the side. How exactly did that hand crank thing work?
Well, we're going to show you when we get to the Learning Center. Why don't we just go to the Learning Center and you can see a lot of it.
Let's talk about this here a little bit first, and then we'll go.
Okay.
You've got a complete operator's workstation here where they had all the little cords that plugged in, like what your microphones plug into your telephone or your Walkman or...
These are your switchboards, and they're different generations of switchboards.
Okay.
This is not repurposing or making this like the company, okay?
Okay.
These are from different decades that we had. Like this is like one of the first ones that we had that was in Socorro, New Mexico.
Okay.
And this is when the operator had to be the test deskman too. So she could put one of the customers calls in and it has static on her line. And so she would say, let me put that up and see where your trouble is. And she would put it up to the meter there and find out with little calculations about how far out from the central office or her area the trouble was. And then she could dispatch a repairman out there. And this was in, I don't know, I can't read that far, 1937 or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it says. Okay, so now...
Now this is her headpiece, okay?
Okay.
So this is what she had on, and in the Learning Center, we have the children do this.
Okay.
And it's one size fits all, and it's very uncomfortable.
Okay. And then she had, what are all the little switch, or
That's her top
switches?
key and her ring key.
And what do those do?
They allow her to talk to the customer and the customer to talk to her.
Okay.
And the ring keys if she had to ring someone else.
And you've got probably 300 little ports that you could plug your phone things
Yeah,
into.
this is everybody in town.
How does she know which one she's supposed to plug in?
Well, they light up when somebody calls in.
When somebody calls in, but in order to connect to the call out, how does she know that
She
one?
goes to a different plug that's the out
Okay,
cable.
but how does she know which one to plug it into?
Yeah,
Whichever
whichever one's available.
Oh, so each one of those isn't a personal line?
Yes, it is. You want to
Okay.
be an operator? Let's.
I mean, if I'm calling you, I ring up over here and it lights up, so you plug into that one,
So
and
the
then I say I
operator
want to
pulls
talk
out
to
her
Sue.
back plug, puts it into my little thing that's lit there. Like this one is the green one there. That's the company manager.
Okay.
So she definitely is going to answer that one. And he wanted to call he wanted to call the hospital or something,
Right.
you know? Okay, so she plugs into that one.
But how does she know which one's the hospital? She has to memorize every one of those plugs as to who's who?
Yep.
That's back in that day, she sure did. Or they had to give her what the number was. And in those numbers they had like letter and number signatures.
Sycamore 5.
No, it didn't go to that. It was to 31L.
Okay.
Okay.
It was 41H. So that was a party line. So she knew she was talking to the party that was 41L, and 41H could have picked up their phone and listened.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, I remember the party line thing.
Okay,
My dad actually had the last party line in the city of Portland, and they finally told him that he could not have a party line any longer because the other person died.
Uh-oh. So he had to go to private line or else.
That was pretty much it.
Yeah. So this is how it worked here, and this is in a rural area, okay?
Okay.
Now, when you come to this building where we had all local and long distance too, you had the same thing come in here, and you have a light lit up, so you pull that up, put that up there. They want to give you some information here, so they would fill out a card that was like filling out a lottery ticket, you know,
Okay.
mark cents, color in the little bubble by the appropriate digit there, and say this is where it's calling from, and this is where they want to call to, and do they want person to person, station to station, or collect?
Okay.
Kids don't know what that is today.
I was just going to say,
They have
let's
no
talk a little
idea.
bit about collect calls.
They have no idea what that is.
That had
okay?
to have been totally frustrating for the operators. And let's just talk a little bit about collect calls. The way it used to be is you had to pay for some of your phone services, like long distance, or if you were at a payphone and you didn't have your dime, which then turned into a quarter, if you didn't have your dime and a payphone, oh boy, we got phone booths and all kinds of other things to talk about, but it used to be before we had cell phones that every corner had a payphone. And you drop your dime in, you could dial the number and you could call. But if you didn't have a dime, the way that you were able to call is you would call collect, and you call the operator would say, or you'd say, I'd like to place a collect call to, and you give them the number. Then the operator would hook up to that number and then talk to the person and say, I have a collect call from Loren Alberts. Will you accept the charges? And then they would say yes, and then the operator would connect you. But the way that we
And then
used to...
she'd put this card under here, and she would do this to time it.
Oh.
Get the face of the clock there, and she'd put that by there.
Okay.
Okay.
And the trick was, when we were kids, that used to frustrate probably the heck out of the operators, was mom knew that you were going to call at some point in time when you needed a ride, and so she would decline the charges and then come pick you up.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And the operators knew the games.
I'm sure they
knew very
did,
well, you
because
know.
I think everybody played them.
Exactly. The thing about the operator is if she didn't hit this collect button on a payphone, they got all their money back out of the payphone.
Right.
So if she pulled that cord down before she hit the collect button, they got all their money back out of that, and she had to make it up.
Really?
Yeah, really. They became very proficient very quickly. Okay?
Yes.
And they had to
Now I'm
keep
beginning
8
to
calls
feel
going
guilty.
at the same time. You should. and what was your number back then? Well, we'll see if we can send you a little bill. No.
I was going to say, I actually can remember it, and probably several others that I called.
But you see all of these little plugs here? This is where her headset was plugged in, okay?
Okay.
Like over there. And this other set was so that the SA, the service assistant, or the chief operator could come and plug in and listen or help you. Obscene phone calls were federal offenses.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So you see, you have a lot of things that we have worked through, you know, that are very pertinent to it. One of the first dial phones that we had when people could dial their own numbers now was over here, and this was 12 years before New York City. Estancia, New Mexico had dial service.
Really?
And that was when they put a dial in the middle of the candlestick phone, okay? And this is how that works, is that's what we cleverly called a stepper. And Tom, you want to show them how that worked?
Yes.
You can stay here and look at it.
Okay.
This switch right here is the central office switch that actually replaced the operators. If you notice, we have this one cover off. I'm going to dial a number and you can watch the switch operate.
Okay.
I pick it up, I'm going to dial a 4.
That switch over here gave him dial tone.
Yeah.
Okay.
It stepped up 4, and then I'm going to dial a 6, and it rotates 6, and here's the call went through.
Okay. And it's coming into an Elvis phone.
Right.
And that's
Wow.
the thing until somebody answers the phone or he hangs up.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it used to be common that our rule was you had to let it ring 7 times. And the reason is because if it rang 5 and somebody was running from the back room, because you only had one phone in the house. If I remember right, they charged you for every extra phone that you had. If you had 2 phone jacks, you got charged an extra $2 a month or something.
Right.
And so we only had one phone in the house, and if you were downstairs doing laundry, you had to run to get to that phone in the 7 rings. And if somebody hung up at 5 just as you were answering, you weren't happy.
Right. So the person on the other end knew you weren't happy by the time you answered. Yeah.
Right. Well, and if they hung up beforehand, you didn't have any idea who called because we didn't have caller ID.
Yeah.
All right. I'm
And then
going to call another number here,
Okay.
and I'm going to dial a 7. It went up 7. And I'm going to dial 2, and it rotates 2.
Okay. And then we got Barbie over here on a record player that's got the receiver.
The kids think that she's dancing on a black CD. They think that's a black CD. They have no idea what a vinyl record is. You know.
Really?
So the parents always go, "Oh, are you kidding me?" I said, "See how much you know and your children don't know?"
Right.
But you know what? No matter how young the kid is, they know who Elvis is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And Mickey Mouse, of course.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
One of the things about the younger children, when you ask them to dial the phone,
Yeah.
they'll pick it up and they'll go, it's
They'll
broke.
try and push the buttons instead of rotating the dial.
That's right.
They don't know what a handset is. We say, pick up the handset, and they go, just this part, okay? And they don't know what the plunger is or a
Right.
flasher, okay? And they immediately, when you tell them, put your finger in the first digit you want to dial, and they always try to go to the left. I have no idea why.
That's really, yeah.
And then pull your finger out when you get to the metal bar, and they go, like it's gonna go off or something, you know.
And then it goes click, 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 click,
Yeah.
click, click as it goes
And
back.
then they think it's cool. I've had some of them, they're turn to their dad and say, "Can we get one of those?"
They still work, don't they?
Yes,
The digital phone, I mean, not the digital, the dial phones.
analog,
Rotary,
yes.
yeah.
Now, see, the trick that we used to try to do when I was a kid, again, we would pick up the handset, and then we would try to click the part that hung up and see if we could click it in the correct manner in order to get the call to connect through. And so if you had a 2, you'd push that thing down real fast 2 times, you know, click, click, and then 5, click, 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 and trying to keep track of your counts while you were clicking it was always a challenge. And then you'd end up with somebody, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong number." But every once in a while, you know, about 1 out of 10 times, you'd be able to get the number you were actually trying to call.
You're bad. That's bad.
That's probably true.
Well, and then in the 60s, we got the Princess phone, and we got these huge, long coil cords. So that was the parents' answer to not paying for an extension. They just got a 26-foot cord.
Right. Yeah. That's and I don't know when they quit charging for the extra phone, but I remember you were rich. My next door neighbor had 2 phones in their house, and it was like, wow, how can they afford that? 2 phones, one in the bedroom and one in the kitchen, you know.
For sure, for sure.
Okay.
Well, let's go to another floor so you can see some of the history unfold for you.
Okay. We're going to take the elevator down?
We're going to take the elevator up, and I'm going to take you to the Learning Center so you can see a number of types of communication that we
Okay.
teach the kids. Now, we're going into the elevator now, so I don't know whether you are going to get this or not, but anyway.
Yeah.
should work.
Oh, yeah, this is just between my
Oh,
phone
okay.
and the microphone, so yeah, it'll work
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, when I get the kids in here for a tour, I'll say, okay, this is the quiz cube. And I try to say, okay, when was the worst blizzard in United States history? And they'll go, oh, what did she say? What did she say? It was 1888.
Okay.
Now, this is like our construction area here. It's very, very slim. But we talk about Bob, who is on the pole, and we tell them how he walked up that pole using gaffs.
Okay, and we've got a lineman that's a life-size mannequin that is on a pole with some of the old glass insulators. And that's what you did, isn't it, Tom? Didn't she say that you were
Yes,
a
yes,
lineman?
I did work as a lineman, yes. I started, I had probably about 4 to 5 years as a lineman before I went.
And that's a really pleasurable job. You don't get called out in the middle of the night or in the middle of blizzards or blazing heat to fix things, right?
Yeah, right. Now the gaffs that you wear on your legs, it's a metal piece goes under the arch of your foot, comes up to your knees. They're padded and everything. They say they're comfortable, but if you hang on the pole for 2 to 3 hours, they're not comfortable at all.
I would imagine that would probably give you some foot problems later
Right.
in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like standing on a ladder rung for one of the old wooden ladder rungs for too
And
long.
some of them are one size fits all too.
Yes, right.
Yeah, so, the headset for the operator was very uncomfortable. Well, so were the gaffs and the tool belts for the men.
Now with the telephone, they run on low voltage, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
To where you don't have to worry so much about the high voltage and getting shocked off the
Well-
pole, or am I wrong there?
Now, when they used the crank, the wooden phones that had the crank on them, that put out a voltage that was 96 volts AC. That would shock you very well.
Really?
Yes. So if you're working up on the pole and you reach out and happen to have your arm touching on 2 wires and somebody rings on it, it'll get your attention.
Wow. But it's not the high voltage stuff like what the electric linemen are working with, or does it have the potential to kill other than to knock you off your?
You have
Well-
shared poles. You have shared poles with the power company. So indeed, there can be a
There
situation.
can be high voltage on that. So one of the things with the power company, they treat everything as hot.
Right.
With the phone company, they don't really do that because there's not supposed to be that high voltage on it. But every now and then it happens to get crossed up and it can be deadly. Really.
Wow. Okay, I didn't.
Power lines are above the telephone lines and the cable TV lines. But if they don't maintain that space between them, there can be some problems.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a space of 4 to 6 feet. We have to stay away from the power lines.
Okay.
In the old days, it was only something like 42 inches.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
And that's like the length of a man's arm. So he's going, okay, turn the power off.
Yeah.
Huh.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and as we step out of the elevator, we've got a couple of displays here. You've got some old soldering irons, some cable cutters, lanterns, and a bunch of other things, I guess, that you would use to maintain your lines.
Yes, that we have cable splices here that are complete, and they're sealed with solder on the ends. And the reason for it, it's paper insulated cable, so they have to keep the moisture out. If the moisture gets in there, it'll short out the lines and then the phone doesn't work. So
Okay.
that's quite a job to get the solder around and seal the ends of the cable. They use hot molten lead to get seal the ends of the cable.
They put a bar of lead like this in an oven like that.
Okay.
And melt it. And then they take that ladle and pour it into a leather glove and wipe the ends of that. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, and you can't see my face here, but I am in shock. I thought that the phone wires were small. These things are 1.5 inches round with what, probably 500 wires in there?
All right. We have 2 different sizes of cable here. This here is what they call a coax cable with the tubes in there about 1/2 inch in diameter.
Okay.
That will carry television on that. The regular telephone wires are very small, really.
And this is from the central office, so it has a big one, and it could be like 2,700 pair. It comes in here, and your splicer makes all of those go to different neighborhoods. Okay, so you might go down to 500 pairs in this one, but you had 2,700 pair in this one.
And you've got 6 or 7 lines coming back out of the splice.
No, those are cables, not lines.
Okay, cables.
The lines are the little wires inside the cable.
Cables coming out of the splice tube
case.
or splice case, and then if somebody clips one of those wires or one of those wires gets clipped, how in the world do you find it?
Well,
Very carefully.
Very carefully. You have a test specimen back at the central office that's sending electricity through that, okay, so that you can find the bad pair, and you can find a number of good pairs too. But they actually put a headset on, and they have a little probe there, so they can stick that in there and find out which pair is hot, okay?
Okay, but
Now, this
that's
is what the
2,500
records
single wires that you got to go through.
Correct. And they're numbered, and that's what you go to splice school for, to learn all of that. And the splice school takes 6 to 8 weeks, 12 weeks for some people.
Right.
I was going to say, it'd be a 5-year course for me.
Yeah.
Well, they're in binder groups. Binder groups have a pattern. So, and then your wires are color-coded now. They didn't used to be then, so everyone had to be, what did they call it?
Yeah,
Toned.
if the cable like this gets cut out in the field somewhere, you have to test to that point, from the central office to that point. Then you have to go to the remote somewhere and test back, and then tie the pairs back. You can't just start tying wires together, because then
Right.
You don't know where it's going to go.
yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Interesting.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and this is what the records people keep track of, every single foot of cable, wires, conduit, manhole covers, pole heights, switching equipment, and house equipment.
Yeah.
And it goes through here, conduits that connect manholes to manholes, manholes to poles, poles to poles, and then go into other and different remote areas. So this is what
Open
the
wire
records
out
people
here.
do, keeping track of every single pair. So you could have cable 6, pair 1 through 26, pair through 27 through 51, through 52 to, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I see
So
what you mean.
that is what you have to do as a telephone company, because your profit is regulated on how much money you spend for every foot, cable, insulator, everything. So
Wow.
when you pay out that money, you're only allowed to get 7 cents profit. That's a regulated company.
Okay, and
The
she was
power
pointing
company
out.
is not regulated the same way.
Okay, and she was pointing out a map up here that has underground and above ground wires all shown, and how they run. And holy smokes, look at this picture.
Now
She's
this,
got a picture hanging on the wall that has wires going everywhere. It looks like something you'd see in downtown
now,
India.
This is like in New York City, I believe. It's a photograph of what the wires used to look like. Remember that telephone pole I showed you, the 27R?
Right.
Well, this is why they had a wire going to every subscriber,
Wow.
every customer, and this is just your business district, okay? So then we got smart and we had remote switching areas, and now we have little access points along the way in every neighborhood.
Right.
So, okay? And this over here is, we had one of our volunteers was a fellow who worked out at Sandia, and he was responsible for developing Lightwave. Lightwave technology is that which allows us to talk to satellites.
Okay.
And this little thing here is what he was responsible for doing. It is what boosts the power to get to the satellite. I'm making this very simple, but
Well, that's the way it needs to be.
yes. But we have handouts that we give to people here about Lightwave, because I think you have to understand, we've gone from little tiny wire to each house to we're talking to satellites through the air. And one of the patents kudos is that it was only an improvement on the telegraph. It did not say it was going to convey the voice. It didn't say it was going to use wire. It didn't say it was going to be handheld. It didn't say, okay? It was an improvement on the telegraph, which was the only communications that they had at that time.
Wow.
And so it was very difficult to break. And in fact, the only reason it was broken is because somebody didn't renew it in time.
Really? Okay, so we come into this room.
This is just basically a pass-through, which we show you a sit-down coin phone. Now,
A sit-down coin phone.
the first coin phones were in the men's restrooms of fine hotels.
Really?
And I tell young women this, and they go, what? Why? And I said, men had the money. Women were not even in the workforce.
I was going to say, as far as traveling salesmen and all that stuff,
Yeah.
that's who
That's
would
what-
have who would have been using it would have been
Exactly.
men on the road. Yes.
Exactly. So they complained that when we moved the phone out of the bathroom into the lobby,
Right.
they had to stand up to make their phone calls. And so after this complaint for many a traveling salesman, we manufactured a sit-down coin phone just for those lazy salesmen.
Okay. And this phone, I've never seen one like it. It looks like a desk. It's got a coin slot in the front so that you could drop your coins in, and the phone sits on top of the desk. You've
There's
got
your
your
coin.
coin return and everything else right there, just like a phone booth, all except it's a desk with a phone on it.
Correct.
That is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then we put this here because this is how people had to go in and pay their telephone bill. They couldn't just write a check and mail it to you. They had to go into the telephone company and pay their bill.
Really?
Yes.
And when did that kind of end?
End?
Yeah.
When did it end?
Well, I still go in and pay my Verizon bill, so.
Probably in the 70s and 80s. I was a service rep in the early 70s, and I had to go out to the lobby because I was a service rep calling and saying, your bill is due. Where are you? You're 5 days late. We're going to have to suspend your service. Mm-hmm. And these people would come in and say, "Arr!" So I had to go out and meet these irate customers and collect their bill. And so that was in the 60s and 70s.
Wow.
I don't know when we got rid of that, to tell you the truth. I think it was probably almost the 80s.
I just don't remember my mom going into the phone company to pay the bill.
You weren't privy to a lot of things your mother knew and did. Okay?
Oh, I'm sure of that.
Yeah. Okay, we're going into our learning center here. And
Okay.
I wanted you to get the flavor of this because we do feel that we're teaching the kids how to get inspired to be an inventor. Most kids are very frustrated and discouraged on even trying new things.
Right.
And they should be encouraged to try even if they fail.
And fail again, and fail again,
and fail again, and fail again. Because inventing is like a relay race. One fellow does one thing, and the next fellow either improves it or takes it apart and makes something else.
Right.
So kids have to be encouraged, I think, to do that.
I would agree with you 100%, so you're not the only one thinking that.
Yeah. So we show them how a coin phone works. Now, I want to give a side footnote to this. Coin phones today, they will work if you pick them up without you putting money in them. You can call 911 always on a payphone, even if you don't have money.
Where do you find a payphone?
That's your problem, not mine.
I was going to say they used to be on every corner, but now there isn't one anywhere. In fact, every once in a while we'll be walking through an old town.
You can find them at a bus station. You can find them at the airport sometimes. Yes, but they have been replaced by cell phones. Yes,
most definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for a payphone and you're in dire need,
exactly,
walk to the airport or the train station.
Right. So if you go to Taiban, New Mexico, which is an intersection, it has a little tiny stand there, and you can go in and use their payphone.
Actually, I've seen payphone booths that don't have any phone in them, more than what I've seen payphone booths with a phone in them.
This is from your people who want that wire.
Right.
They want that metal so they can repurpose that, you know.
Right.
But we show them a coin phone. I wanted to just show you this because it's an audio. And we teach the kids that they could be an operator.
Okay.
Okay.
And she's pulling a bunch of coins out of the bottom of the coin drawer.
Because this was what the coin collector did. This was a lock and a drawer at the bottom of the payphone. Inside is where the money dropped into this drawer. And then a coin collector would come around with his keys, unlock it, and take out the money and take it back to accounting.
Okay.
Women couldn't have that job.
Oh.
They had to go into bars, brothels, and things like that, so they didn't let women do that.
Okay.
It was a very good paying job, though, so we got
well, I'll
there.
bet it was.
We got there. Okay, so this is what a nickel would sound like to the operator. And a dime. And a quarter.
Wow.
And a 50-cent piece. And the cowboys got paid in silver dollars, so this is what the silver dollar sounded like.
Wow.
And then if they tried to fool you, you probably knew this. The operator would say, "There's been an error, and I'm going to return all your money to you, and you can begin again."
Now, why would you think that I would know that if you took the back plug out of an electrical thing, that it was the same size as a quarter or a nickel, that it would not ring? I'm
It was
appalled
just a
that you would
lucky
think
guess.
that I would do something like that.
It's just a lucky guess.
Yes, I am aware of that. That is cool.
And see, this was in the Montezuma Hotel in Santa Fe, New Mexico, even in 1914.
Wow. And so I guess that you could just about be blind because of the tones. You could hear those, and I don't know if you'd be able to see where to plug the plugs into, but as far as the tones, that's cool.
Isn't that something?
That is.
And then we put the overachieving, hyperactive kids over to this one. It's a 507 PBX.
PBX, yes.
Stands for Private Branch Exchange. This would be something that your operator would use who was in the university dorm.
Okay.
And she could connect the different calls there, or he. And this would be in a doctor's complex.
Okay.
Something like that. So that had nothing to do with the operator paid for by the telephone company.
This is more like for 100 offices in a building.
Right.
So that you could ring each individual office.
Right. So we put one of the hyperactive kids over here, and we say, okay, we want you to connect these two friends to those two friends, and we don't tell them how to do it. So they play around with it. The younger generation is not afraid of anything mechanical, electronic, or anything that could be broken. They just go ahead and do it. And then the kicker is that when they succeed and they go, hey, I did it, we say, oh, everybody in the room, sit down, they're going to explain how they did it. Oh, now, wait a minute. Whoa, I don't know how I did it.
But
we say, now, wait a minute. You know, the key to learning is, can you pass on that information?
Yes.
If you can't communicate what you've learned, is there really learning taking place? So we kind of challenge them to do that, and it gets the teachers thinking a different way to do things too. So, and over here we have
and the kid, you're saying that the kids couldn't figure that out. I would probably have to play with this for quite a while myself to figure out just exactly.
It takes them like less than 5 minutes.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. That's why you do the overachievers.
I'm going to say I am not going to try and beat that 5-minute time limit.
You're just admitting you're not an overachiever. Well, you know, the guy that's making trouble, you know, for everybody, that's what we do with him.
Well, that's good.
And it is like, you know, and it's like the challenge of all challenges, and that's why they do it.
Okay, and you've got lots of interactive stuff here.
We have over here 911. We do not teach children what 911 is. They already know.
This on.
Yeah, but we didn't when we were kids.
We didn't have it.
I was going to say 911 didn't come until what, 1990?
3 goes to who?
95?
Yeah.
It was late.
Yeah, it was about 1990.
This operator, this is the operator.
Right.
But
And
this is
when
where
this-
we would train. We use this as a
Three.
trainer
Okay.
to teach
Now she
the
can
operators
talk.
how to be a 911
And then
operator.
she says you want
Okay.
to
Okay?
bring 5.
That's cool that they
Yeah,
got
now-
that
Have
set
to
up.
go to 5.
What we find is that they have to know the W's
ringing
that are
5.
going to plague them their whole life. The who, what, when, where, and why.
Okay.
And so we teach kids, always know that.
You should be able to
Who, what,
talk.
when, where,
Are you-
why.
Hello. You
And
hear me?
use your memory cells when you're standing in line
So,
at the
that's-
grocery
that's
store.
how it's done.
What did the fellow in front of you, what was he wearing? What color were his shoes? What color was his eyes? Did he have a beard?
not smart enough to-
We teach them,
I was just
remember things like that,
an
because if
old
you have
lineman
to
out in the
make a
field.
call, that's what the 911 operator is going to need to know.
Okay, I'm turning it
Okay.
off.
And we
Yeah.
teach them how to do it.
Fun.
One of them
Yeah,
has to be
let's
the
see.
operator.
See, now that,
Oh, ring.
let's see.
Linda and Tom are over playing with the phones. So
I'm not smart enough to run it though. I couldn't tell her how to do it.
Uh-oh.
We don't.
You did figure it out.
You learned how to do it.
Well, we had 2 conversations going on here at the same time, so hopefully people can get through it.
I just
Okay.
want to show you this. This is the military phones. We call them field phones, and I always wondered how they worked.
Well, I'm wondering that too, because they almost had to be wireless unless they were stringing wire everywhere they went.
They were both, yeah.
These here were strung wire. Yeah, they had the string wire.
Some guy had to carry a reel of this kind of wire over hill and dale, okay? And this is a little switchboard that was in the general's office or something, you know. But this is how you do it. This pin keeps this handset in this apparatus, and this thing
Okay.
weighs, I'll bet you, 10, 15 pounds.
Yeah,
Probably.
and you can carry it that way.
And you could carry it this way, okay?
By the handset.
By the handset, and then you could push that pin in there, and it release the handset, and then it works like a walkie-talkie. You press to talk. When you're through talking and you want to hear the other person, you say over.
Right.
And release your button, then they can press their button and talk to you. And this is how you make the call.
Oh.
You crank a hand crank and it makes that tone.
Just like a little egg beater that's set in the side of the canvas bag here. And that's when you go ahead and talk like a walkie-talkie. Kids don't know what a walkie-talkie is. Okay.
Right, they've got cell phones.
They have cell phones, so we're teaching them all sorts of things that they may adapt in the future. We might be talking to other planets that don't have the same infrastructure as we do, right?
Right.
Remember I was telling you about the voltage
Right.
is different. This here is 96 volts to ring this phone, but they only talk on 48 volts. And it's DC current that you talk on, not AC.
Okay. Now, I am fascinated with the idea that you had a guy carrying wire. Okay, so you got your base camp
Be the
set up.
best you can be. That's what the commercials say, and that's what that guy's doing, is carrying a
Well,
reel of wire.
You've got a base camp, and you've got to march out 10 or 15 miles to where the battle line is. They strung wire that far?
Yes, and they had to get it across so that the tanks or whatever was moving didn't tear it up. They might put it on a tree, they might put it on a pole. It depended.
That is insane.
And
But
they
Think about what we are blessed with today.
Well, I was
Okay?
thinking these things were radio waved somehow
No.
or another. I did not have any comprehension.
Yeah.
So when they're going through these old battlefields, they're finding wire strung everywhere.
could be, yes.
Could be.
That
Or-
is crazy.
People have picked up the wire and sold it.
The metal industry is doing very well. You know. In
Right.
fact, and we have a couple of eggs from South Africa that were decorated with telephone wire, and they're beautiful. They look like, you know, Fabergé eggs. But these came from a fellow who came in here, and he said, "I want to donate these to you." And we're going, "What the heck is this?" And he says, "Well, these eggs were made by the women in South Africa because they didn't have any means of supporting themselves once their men were either killed or walked away from them. And so they would go out and steal the telephone wire and make these eggs and other kinds of baskets and things like that to sell." And so our people were having terrible headaches over, you know, everybody being put out of service. They didn't know where they were going next. And so one of the managers, and I'm sure it was a woman, said, let's just give them a reel of wire. And then, you know, it would be cheaper to give them a whole reel of wire than it would be to keep trying to put people back in service. So that's what they did.
And when was this? The 1960s? 1970s?
No, this was like in 2010.
Okay, because I remember going to different camps, you know, when I was a kid, like Boy Scout camp or something, and they would always have big strings of telephone wire because it was so colorful. You know, you'd have red, yellow, green, all in the same thing, and they'd all have just like, what, a half inch of red and a half inch of green, and then they would take and we would have to weave those or braid those into bracelets or necklaces or
Right.
whatever. You don't see that stuff anymore, but it was really,
Go to
really
South
popular.
Africa, you can.
But they were really popular back at one point in time to use the old telephone wire that way. And it was a really thin wire.
Right.
Yeah, but
And this is how we teach the kids how to be a telephone operator.
okay.
Okay, so it's a little switchboard. It's a PBX, that private branch exchange.
Okay.
This is from another era.
Okay.
And so we would get a call,
Okay.
and then you put this into the hole that has the light by it,
Okay.
okay? And then they say, I want to talk to number one. The operator has got this wonderful headset on.
Right.
Okay.
And sitting in a really comfortable chair.
And sitting in an extremely comfortable chair.
Yes.
And everybody always asks, what is this? And it's a little spring-operated, teardrop-shaped folder underneath the chair that's attached to the chair. That's where you had to put your purse.
Oh. Okay. Well, at least they
In the
gave you
70s,
someplace.
that's where the men had to put their purse too. Okay.
Okay.
You don't remember, the kids don't remember these eras anyway. So.
I do.
Okay, so I want to call number one. We put this plug into number one. I'm in the
This
wrong,
is number
I'm in the
27.
wrong one.
Okay.
Okay.
You just flunked your
I
operator's
flunked
test.
operator service, so, okay, so then we hit the ring key.
You had to hit the ring key?
Yeah, we did. And there was a whole ringer machine we'll show you in the basement that allowed the operator to continue to ring even if the power was off. Because we have batteries. The telephone company provides the power for your landline.
Okay.
So you will always have telephone power in your home, even if the power is off. Now your cell phone might be different.
This is...
Okay.
I am learning so much here. This is just boggling my mind that an operator had to physically ring my phone. I thought it just happened as soon as she plugged it in. I'm feeling sorry for these operators.
Well, duh, yeah. So who built the system, the men or the women? The women had to bring the money in to buy for that cable that the men had to put up. We did it together.
Right.
Okay.
Well, holy smokes. I had no comprehension it was this complicated.
Well, and then I had a commercial airline pilot come in and she said, how many weeks of training did they get to do this? I mean, I got 3 weeks in the cockpit, but I don't think I could do this, you know. So
well, yeah, you guys have more buttons to push and connections to make and all that than...
And not only that, let me tell you, we had an opening for 15 911 operators. We have 2 911 centers here.
Okay.
Okay, one west of the river and one east of the river. And they had an opening for 15 operators. They had 123 applications. And after getting through, you know, wanted warrants and drug train
Right.
testing and all of that, they came down with 23 applicants, and they offered it to them, and only 2 wanted the position. And
From
one
100
of them,
and how many?
23. And these 2 were the only one that could type and talk at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's like
So I
chewing
challenge the
bubble gum.
kids, you know, tell your folks this is going to make them a job someday. But you
Right.
need to learn how to type and talk at the same time. Listen, talk, type. Can you do it? Out of those 123, 2 of them could do it. One of them quit after the first day
Yeah.
Oh, no.
because she didn't know it was shift work.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so it's interesting that we have become a very mechanical and electronic society, but there are still jobs to do. There are still effort that needs to be done. There's still inventions that need to be invented.
Wow. Yeah, well, the typewriter's gone. I guess a lot of the kids, though, wouldn't they pick up a lot of those skills working with computers, with the keyboards?
Sure, that's what I'm telling you, yes. But that's what the 911 operators use, is they use a computer keyboard. They're
Okay.
looking at a computer screen. They may be looking at 3 computer screens, okay? And
But
they are,
be able to talk at the same time.
that's the key to it right there.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that little chatterbug student, he may have
May
a
have
job
that.
in the future.
Right.
If they don't keep him from learning or stifle his abilities in the process of you've got ADHD. I'm sorry. The whole I would have been considered ADHD. I did not act out in school, but I also was paying attention to the birds on the lawn, to the squirrels in the trees, to the lady walking down the street, because my mind would not concentrate on what they wanted me to concentrate on.
Right. Have a seat at this. This is I'm asking Linda to sit down at this, and this is a video phone that was 1970s.
70. They come out, yeah.
Where they came out and they were a total bomb. Nobody wanted them. They didn't want to be seen in curlers. They didn't want to be seen with another person or whatnot. The whole thing about it is that our PR department failed to tell the customer, you're not going to be on camera until you answer the phone.
Okay.
They thought they were going to get a phone call, bam, they're on camera, okay? It's totally unacceptable. And we didn't have a lot of coaxial cable. You remember Tom told you coaxial carries the pictures.
Right.
Okay? So when this came out, we had to put what we call the silver ribbon. It was from house to curb.
Okay.
And that carried the pictures that were transcribed into the telephone company and back out again, okay? And this is third world country stuff right here. It takes about 5 seconds for her to wave back to herself.
Oh, really?
I'm having fun with this.
Yeah.
Well, it looks a lot like when you're talking on your cell phone with the video picture going.
Right.
And
And are you on camera
your
until you
camera's
answer the
right
phone?
here.
Yep, I see it.
No, you're not.
See,
You
there
got to push
go.
the button in order to get the
Another
video.
thing we learned by trial and error, huh?
Right. Wow.
Okay.
This little hands-on learning room is so cool.
Isn't it good?
It
and
is.
Tom set up the telegraph so that we teach them how to do the telegraph.
The Morse code.
The Morse code, the bidet code is what it was transferred into to make a teletype machine work.
Okay.
Same thing as Morse code, but it was called the bidet code for teletypes. Same code.
Right.
But I teach
that's
them
all-
this so they can pass notes without anybody knowing that they're passing notes.
And again, that intrigues me. The Morse code being able to translate as fast as what some of those people can, because you've got to have breaks in between things and between your
could
words
do.
and stuff. And yeah, it's just,
There might not be a society of Morse coders anymore, who knows? If you say Morse code, the kids are thinking of coding that we do to talk to computers and make computers say certain things. So we teach them about the string and can. I've had second grade teachers say, do you need a particular type of string or a particular type of can? Or when I'm going, make me feel old. Anyway.
I was going to say, didn't they play with those when they were kids?
No, they were not kids. They grew up with electronics.
Yeah.
They grew up with cell phone. We grew up with string and can,
We did.
you know?
Yeah.
And cards in the spokes of our bicycles.
Exactly.
Yeah, we did.
I was going to
let
say,
people
we
know where we're coming
have 3 different kinds of cans. This is a local call. This is long distance. This is overseas.
And we have one that has both ends out of it and no string connecting it. It's wireless.
Oh, really?
They used to call them megaphones, but.
Right. Okay, now I got a question. They started making international calls in the early 1900s, and that means that they had to string wire like what we were talking about way back there with the great big cables and stuff all the way across the ocean, right?
Come to our other room in here. You're getting way ahead of your time here.
I'm sorry, way ahead of my
Way
time.
ahead of your
1900s, way ahead of my
I
time.
know, I think we've done everything we can
Oh,
do there.
I
Oh,
might-
I wanted to show you this. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
All right. This is a magneto here.
Those are
Right?
magnets.
Magnet, rather. I'm sorry.
That's why we
There's
call it magnet.
there's a little armature. And when I turn the armature,
It makes the ring.
that puts the power up to here and rings the bell. Now, if you hang on to that and I turn this, that will shock you.
Oh, well, I'm going to grab a hold better.
But this
Okay.
is the way the old phones worked. Now, they had batteries down here. The batteries was for talking. This
Okay.
was only to signal the operator.
Okay, and did you just crank it in a special way, or did you just crank it?
Just like that.
They had ring codes,
Yeah.
so 2 shorts, a long, 2 longs, a short.
Okay.
But the operator did that.
Yeah,
This is if you're out in the field and you're calling to the operator.
you can only do to the operator.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Make
the
it simple.
operator
Yeah.
can.
We're making
she
this
did.
simpler and simpler. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted one little footnote here.
Okay.
We just got this donated to us. It's a hand crank generator for the field phones, you know.
Okay,
And
and
somebody had to sit on that portion, which looks like a paddleboard, okay? And then they had to crank
by hand,
by hand, one
It'd be
crank
like
going
bicycle-
up, one like a bicycle.
like a bicycle pedals,
Exactly.
and
So
it would
much
turn
so
the
to
generator.
generate that, yeah.
Wow.
You thought that the Army was
Well-
hard? Guess what? It's really hard. It doesn't only deal with mud, it deals with all this mechanical stuff. Now I'm gonna take you into this other room. I'm gonna skip this one for a moment.
Okay.
Because this is an audio that we have of Pancho Villa's raid on New Mexico.
Now, why would you have that in the telephone museum?
Because it was a telephone operator that saved the town by notifying the cavalry that Pancho Villa was on a tear.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to go back to that.
We are going to go back to
So you
that.
can learn that, yes. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. This is like the first telephone call. This is his, Alexander Graham Bell's workshop is here.
Okay.
Okay, and this is the first coast-to-coast call. All right,
And and that's between New York and San Francisco
right,
in 1915.
right.
Okay, so now,
Okay, so then we go over to this
before
one.
I ask this question.
Yes, before you ask this question, then we go over to this one, and this was the first transatlantic call. You were asking about international. They had to put a cable across the ocean floor.
Yes.
Floor.
Okay.
We didn't have huge towers and things like that. So they put a huge cable going from Oban, Scotland, clear over to
New Brunswick.
New Brunswick,
Nova
Okay.
Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
Yes.
That's where Alexander Graham Bell lived, was in Nova Scotia, okay?
Okay, so how
those
big,
were
how big around was this cable?
It's right there,
That's all the bigger it was.
yeah.
I mean, we're looking at a cable that's 2 inches in diameter.
It only carried 40 calls over and 40 calls back.
Okay.
And it had repeaters every now and then, because as you have power, it will decline. So you'd have a booster, for want of a different word, an amplifier.
And
a
they just
repeater.
took a ship
What do you want to call
they just took a ship across the ocean and dumped cable on the way.
it? Yeah,
And we're
sounded
talking-
easy, right?
We're talking how many miles of
Piece
cable?
of cake. This was
This
in
is
the
a ship.
North Atlantic,
This
where
is
you
a
had
ship.
icebergs.
Right. Where the
Okay.
Titanic sank.
Exactly, okay? And they had to do that in the summer, because there aren't as many icebergs evidently in the summer.
Right.
But this ship, when it took the cable over the end of it, over that wheel, the cable was so heavy and the drag was so immense that it could actually tear that cable apart,
Right.
don't you know? So they put little parachutes on it. This was all learned by the engineers of the Bell system, Canada, and England, I think.
Yeah.
Did they have a way to float this cable back up so that they could repair it if anything ever clipped it or broke it?
No, you don't. What you would do is they had to have a repeater that had a lifespan that was going to endure the North Sea movements.
Right.
And this cable is sitting on the floor of the ocean
Right.
and getting covered moment by moment, okay, by silt,
Right.
sand, dirt, fish, dead stuff, whatever. And so if a cable went bad, you're done. You have to either put in another cable or you have to send a diver down there to find the problem. Where on that cable is there a breakdown? Okay, so you don't want that to happen.
No.
So the engineers were really, really put to it.
But the thing is you can't really put a diver down. In those days, you couldn't put a diver down any more than about 100 feet for 5 minutes.
Fortunately, the cable never failed.
Wow. That is unbelievable.
Remarkable
they
accomplishment.
Did they have a way of making the wire on the ship? So that, I mean, because you're talking, how many hundreds of miles are we dealing with going across the ocean?
They had reels of cable on the ship, and they'd run them out, and then they'd make a splice and
Pay
keep
it out.
on going.
Okay.
The cable weighed 10 pounds a foot.
Okay, well, that'd be enough to keep it sunk, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow. That is,
Isn't it amazing?
my comprehension bubble has been blown.
And this was in what year? I can't see that far down.
Me either.
1956, 58.
That was the first
Let's just say in the
transatlantic?
50s.
That was the first transatlantic, okay. I was thinking it was probably earlier than that, but that's, wow. Okay,
And that ship was owned by the British, I believe,
okay.
thus the name.
The Monarch,
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was their engineers and the Bell engineers. The government did not pay a penny for
really?
this.
Wow.
And then this is a telegraph test board to make the telegraph keep working, and the teletype came in and it was used the same way.
Okay, and we got a
So-
mail operator here.
Yes.
I'm not talking about MAIL, I'm talking about MALE.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so this was how the first telegraph happened on the teletype in the Kennedy assassination. And we have a reproduction of that very teletype that went out. The teletype's function is that it was the same as a telephone call, but it went to different areas at the same time.
Okay.
That was the first time that could be done.
Okay.
So the teletype
Mentioned the code.
would convey messages like the Bordeaux code.
Okay.
So this was a teletype, and this would be the perforator, and this would be the transmitter, and this would be the transcriber. So
Okay.
it looks just like a typewriter, okay?
Yes.
So this one is cutting the tape, and it's using the Bordeaux code, which is a number of holes on one side of the sprocket reel and a number of holes on the other side. And this is the code that is used for the alpha numbers,
Okay.
alpha.
And this
characters.
teletype ribbon is only about 3/4 of an inch wide, and it has a whole bunch of little perforations on it that would almost look maybe something like
Hanging chads.
okay, hanging chads. Or I was gonna say, what do the blind people use for their
Braille.
Braille.
Mm-hmm.
Doggone it! I had the word 20 seconds ago, and it slipped me as we were talking. But it'd be kind of like a Braille on the 3/4 inch. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how it would work. I would put this tape in this machine, and I would do like this, and it would type out the message.
Okay, so it's all automated.
Yeah, right. It's automated.
Well.
We have to have an operator that actually cuts that tape,
Uh-huh.
okay? See the K and the T, this is cutting, and this is just running the tape, and this is K and T. I'm cutting one at the same time I'm transmitting
Okay.
it. You don't want to do this. Anyway, so
No.
this is, so we call this one the Fox machine. All it does is receive messages. So
Okay.
we tell them it's the Fox machine because when you say the lazy brown fox jumped over the quick dog jumped over the lazy dog's back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 times. That uses every key on the keyboard. So it's a
Okay.
test. Like this one is the transistor, I'm sorry. The whole problem or the whole function of a transistor is it does the same things that all these tubes did,
Okay.
but it works cold. It does not heat up.
Okay.
That is what a transistor does. Okay, so you're able to put a transistor, the first ones were about the size of this little button here. It's just a little tiny slug of a button, and it has little wires coming out of it, okay?
Right.
And this would be a transistor, and this is a integrated circuit board, and every little dot that you see on that is 100 transistors.
Whoa.
Okay, and it would replace a whole room full of these tubes. The first computer would have taken up the room we just came from and this room with tubes. ENIAC, it was on Jeopardy this last week.
Well, we went to the computer museum in Bozeman, Montana, and they had a picture of a room of tubes, and they said that they only lasted for like, I'm trying to think, an hour or something,
Exactly.
or 15 minutes or something, and then they had to replace the tube. And so they had guys that were just running around replacing tubes on a constant basis as their full-time jobs.
Right, so you can imagine the significance of the transistor,
Yes.
which was invented by Bell Labs engineers,
Okay.
how significant it was to our society. I try to challenge some of the kids to say, you know, if people are in the rainforest today, are they going to know what we know? Are they going to be able to invent what we've invented? What are the steps that we could skip to do more and better things?
That's an intriguing question, because everything is predicated on a previous invention.
Exactly.
And so I don't think that you could invent by skipping steps, because
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Do we have to go back to the beginning on everything?
No, but at the same time, you know, and I've often said that if we have another depression or something, or let's say we had a big population decrease, we would go way back, because take the automobile. There is not one person that could build the engine, do the body work, and build the tires and all of that kind of stuff. There's not one person that has the knowledge to be able to put an automobile together from scratch with all the raw materials, the mining and everything else that goes in it. That whole thing is built on what somebody else has done, and the combination is what makes it be able to move down the road.
Not one person did it.
Not one person
Period.
did it. No.
Yeah. So that means that we have to partner with each other. We have to do good things, big things.
Together.
But we can only do it together.
Only together. That's true.
Unfortunately, we can only wage war together too. But anyway, this is what this. You know, I mean,
Well, no.
cut that out when you can. This
We
is
probably will leave it, because it's a true statement.
This is a kind of a wall that we made for the transistor, because I thought, oh well, you know, I have senior citizen groups come in and they go, we don't do computers, we don't. That's changed over the last 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but I used to have senior citizen groups come in, they go, oh, we don't do computers. And I said, listen, there isn't a thing you can do to a computer that a computer won't tell you. Are you sure you want to do that?
Right.
And it's only answering questions, yes and no. That's the language a computer uses. And so I put this up here as yes and no, right? Ones and O's.
Right.
That's basic binary language. And I put it up here, and I had an engineer from Sandia come in and start reading. I said, don't do that. I don't know what I said. It was just a pattern, you know? Just a pattern. And then this is kind of the thing about the first communication satellite, Telstar 1. It was my high school song, Telstar, you know, but we had an engineer come in here and he said Telstar 1 was a bomb. He said, I just come out of MIT, and they said, uh-oh, it came out of orbit and burned up.
Uh-oh.
Hey, you're the new guy, fix it. He said, I didn't even know what was going on. And he said, I said, what happened to it? They said, it burned up. It wasn't supposed to burn up, but it burned up. So he started to work on the heat shields. So his formula for the heat shields is what they put on Telstar 2, and 4 months later, it was launched again, and it came out of orbit 9 months later, exactly as it was programmed to do.
Wow.
And it didn't burn up. Now, that formula that he used on those heat shields is the same formula they use on the heat shields of the space shuttle today.
Okay.
Okay?
Wow.
So the telephone engineers and workers have done an awful lot. And then they broke us up.
Yes, that happened in the 90s, right?
1984.
Was it that long ago?
1/1 of 84, we were 10 companies plus mother AT&T. Okay?
No,
And these were my
AT&T
clothes that I used. So I worked out in the field and I worked in the office. So
Okay. Well, now AT&T was the long distance supplier, right? And Ma Bell was the local. Is that correct, or how did that work? Because I guess I don't really know.
Oh, okay. We'll teach you
I lived
everything
through
about
it.
the company. Yeah. What it was is AT&T was the umbrella company,
Okay.
and the Baby Bells were
Right.
her babies that were the companies in each of the different states
Okay.
and territories. Okay. So if you had 100 shares of AT&T on December the 31st of 1983. The next day, you had 10 shares of all of these companies and 10 shares of AT&T.
Okay.
Okay? And then this is what's happened to all of those companies clear up into just the year 2000. I had a guy come in, he said, why don't you do that clear up to year 2020? And I said, why don't you do that and donate it to us?
Good job.
Okay.
And then this is what the Bell companies look like when they started. These were the different Baby Bells.
Okay.
Okay.
And we got Pacific, the Pacific Bell, the Mountain States, Northwestern, Southwestern, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. So where the population increased on the East Coast, you had more Baby Bells than
I don't know.
on the
And
West
then we
Coast.
consolidated a lot of them into different areas. Okay.
Okay.
And it was really the philosophy of the AT&T company to be responsive to the particular customers that they dealt with. People in New York don't have the same needs as people in New Mexico.
Okay.
People in New Mexico don't have the same needs as people in Chicago.
Okay.
And people in Chicago don't have the same needs as people in Florida.
Right.
So the company wanted the local managers to be responsive to those customers and what they needed, required, and how they thought.
Okay. Interesting. And so AT&T at that time was a monopoly.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not saying that in a negative way or a positive way. It's just
yes.
they were a monopoly.
Yes.
And that's the reason that they got broke up, correct?
Correct.
And it was a private company, or was it it was government regulated to some degree, was it not?
Definitely.
Okay.
Always has been.
Okay. So it was a government controlled monopoly, and that's the reason it was
No,
allowed
it wasn't a government-controlled monopoly.
Okay.
No.
Help me out with this.
It was a private company
Right.
that expanded, and the government said, you own too much, you're too big.
Okay.
You have all the communications. You can't do that anymore.
Okay. And so when
And
they
we
broke it up,
provided the government with their service at a discounted price. Excuse me. But we had one monopoly called the government telling another monopoly that they couldn't exist anymore, that they had to diversify.
Okay.
And so that's what happened. Judge Green came up, they did that. Charlie Brown was the president of AT&T, and he said, okay, we've done enough. We've given you everything you wanted to tell you that we are being responsive to every single person that we serve.
Okay.
And you're saying this is monopoly and it's bad We're breaking you up. All of your inventions are just for you. They're going to belong to other people now. You have to open up your network.
And how did that work exactly? Because you
I
opened up...
don't even want to get into it.
Well, the
This
part
is a
I'm...
museum, not...
Right, but the part I'm curious about is AT&T has all of the phone lines. They have...
Add all of the phone
but they're the ones that built the infrastructure for the whole thing, and that was taken away from them and given to other companies, or the other companies had to pay for the use of those.
The other companies
infrastructure?
came in and they had to pay for a portion of it for quite a while. The Bell system had to subsidize them to get them started.
So they had to subsidize their own competitors. Okay. We don't need to go any deeper than this.
Good,
I'm just
glad,
curious.
yes.
How...
You're going to get me in jail here. You know, it's hard when you are talking on an open network like we are here,
Right.
that you kind of want to be a little bit precise about it, and those are areas where I'm pretty subjective. So I don't want to do that.
Right. No,
Because
and
I'm
I understand
representing more than just my opinion.
that. Right. And, but yeah, we all have opinions and we all have experiences, and sometimes those come through.
Right.
It even does for me, even though I try to stay objective too. But
Yeah. Now these are what we call our art gallery. They're photos, and we have digitized a lot of them because the air conditioner was doing a job on them. But one of our volunteers developed them, dry mounted them, and then we all got together as volunteers and made the frames and put the mat board, and then we had to raise money to buy the little labels here and stuff like that. So I go into other museums and I go, oh my God, do you know how much that cost? Oh my God, you know how much that cost? Oh my God, you know how. So, you know, we've done it from the ground up, and we had no subsidies from any company at all.
and a lot of these pictures are depicting, well, you've got one of one of the telephone buildings, actually several of them. You've got some with the telephone poles being hauled by freight car. You've got trucks working.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's on a track.
It is?
Yeah, that's a
Okay,
truck.
it is.
Okay.
Okay. You're
Okay.
Good. Very,
Yeah.
very good observation.
And
here.
you've got other.
These are actually the men and the equipment and some of the incidents that happened when they were putting the Denver to El Paso tow line through here.
Okay.
Okay? It went from Denver to El Paso.
The Denver to El Paso
Toll line.
toll line went, and it was a
From-
toll line.
Yes, toll line means between states.
Okay, I was thinking pay for, like a toll road. Okay.
Oh, no.
I'm glad you clarified that.
All communications are paid for.
Right, okay.
The customer who is communicating is the one who's paying for them.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, now this is the 2 millionth phone that was installed in the Mountain States area.
The 2 millionth.
2 million.
Okay, and we're looking at a blue phone, kind of a baby blue rotary
Rotary disc.
dial phone.
And it was installed on July the 15th of 1958. We got 2 million phones just in our area in the Southwest
Okay.
by 1958. You know, it took 10 years to get 1 million phones from the time it was first invented. And then it took another year to get 10 million phones.
Wow.
So it was
It
going
really
by
grew-
leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
But this one was installed on the San Ildefonso Pueblo here in New Mexico. And we had this in our internal magazine back then
Okay.
in 1958. And see, you have the phone there in this black and white picture, okay? And we didn't have anything else about it except that that was a commemorative telephone installation, 2 millionth of the Mountain States telephone area,
Okay.
And I had 3 women come in here in 2016.
Okay.
And they kept looking and looking and looking at that picture. I said, what are you looking at? And this lady, she said, "That's my father, that's my grandfather, and that's my godfather."
Oh, wow.
I said, "Oh, terrific, give me their names." So then I put their names up there, and that's the first time that we had that up there.
And they're Native Americans from the Pueblo, and was that the
This
first?
is the governor. Mhm.
Okay,
Of the Pueblo.
was that the first telephone in the Pueblo, or you don't know that? Okay. It's pretty
I
cool
would
picture, though.
imagine, since there's usually only one chapter house, that
Okay.
probably was the only phone that was there. Everything happened in the chapter house.
Okay.
Okay?
Cool. Excellent photo there too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is so cool. I've learned so doggone much today.
Good, good. And I'm going to give you this because it's a handout, and it's about Theodore Vail. This is the Vail Award. Theodore Vail was the first general manager of the Bell system. They always say Alexander Graham Bell invented the phone,
Right.
and Theodore Vail invented the system.
Okay.
Okay? Very smart man. Everybody that worked for him admired him. Everybody he worked for admired him. He was a doer and a shaker. And his thought process was, if a person works their whole life to make your company successful, then when they can't work, that company should take care of them. So the first pension plans were invented by Theodore Vail.
Wow.
And at that time, the board of directors said, "Get him out of here right now. Those patents are ours, not his." So he was canned.
Really? They didn't take care of him.
So, but he was so cool that I made that out for you so you could read it. And the thing I like about it is his work ethic is no business talk after 6 o'clock. I love that man.
Right?
Cool.
Okay.
Well, have we just about covered most everything here? I mean, there's tons more to cover, but
Exactly.
we've kind of seen most of the displays and kind of covered a basic history.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Well, then
we
let's
did.
go ahead and wrap this up. Your museum is really easy to find. If you look on Google, it took us right here.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had complaints about that.
Oh, did you?
If you don't put the word street behind Fourth,
Okay.
you
I
end
just.
up in Bernalillo.
Oh, well, that's where we drove from, and we just typed in the telephone museum, and it came up with your website. I went from the directions there, and it brought us right here. It is right downtown Albuquerque, and this museum is absolutely fascinating, and you have been absolutely fascinated.
Thank you so much. And if you want to go online and go to our virtual tour, it's on https://unlimitedDroneSolutions.com/telephone-museum-NM.
Okay.
And that takes you 360 into every room here.
Okay.
Okay, that's great.
Okay? It has no audio or music or anything to it, but you
Okay.
can go floor to floor and room to room.
Cool. And if you're in the Albuquerque area, I would suggest coming here just for the education. This has been phenomenal.
And we only covered about half of it for you.
Well, we'll continue to look and cover the other half.
Good.
Well, people
So-
need to come and see
And
it.
people do need to come and see it.
Right.
But
We're
I always
open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m.
okay, so
Monday,
kind of limited
Wednesday,
hours.
Friday. Yes.
But okay, that's great. Now, I always finish out my podcast by saying the world is full of wonder. People need to get out and explore. And this is absolutely fascinating with what is here and the way that the history is presented and the hands-on that you can do here and the things that you can see is just unbelievable. And everybody have an absolutely wonder-filled day.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?